I'd also like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet today and also pay my respects to the elders past and present. Um, I'm really proud to be a part of some of these important conversations at Austrade, where we deepen our understanding and exposure to multiculturalism, especially where sometimes our exposure, which I'm quite guilty of too, can be quite limited to surface level experiences at festivals, food fairs, or even just hotels during our travels. So, this conversation in particular comes at quite a timely moment, and we also know that the future of business, like Milton said, relies on global talent as well as human talent. So, in order to be successful in organisations such as Austrade, we need to be able to nurture our relationships with a wide variety of people and within our own teams, understand how we can harness and empower talent and strengths to get the best out of our people. And this is where inclusive leadership comes into play. So, inclusive leadership is all about understanding diversity and giving people an equal chance and a seat at the table. Acknowledging that diversity does come in a variety of forms and interactions, today's focus is on how inclusive leaders can actually leverage the strength and talent of multicultural capabilities within organisations. So, I want to quickly share a personal experience of mine years ago, which actually led me on a journey to thinking about diversity and inclusive leadership in the workplace. So, picture this: I'm standing in a room full of post it notes and writings from a workshop, and the workshop attendees have left, and I'm packing up my materials. My colleague, a little bit senior to me, who was an observer in the workshop, comes over to me and says, "Wow, you did really well. I mean, you had no trouble at all in engaging the conversation or facilitating the ideas." So, what do you mean? I was kind of internalizing. I had never said I would have trouble. This was a pretty simple workshop. I knew what I had to get out of it. I never voiced any anxiety, nervousness, or hesitation about delivering in the workshop. But all I said was, "Oh, that's an interesting comment." Well, my colleague continued, "In our team meetings where we speak up over each other, throw our ideas about, and get to a solution really quickly, I assumed you were shy and reserved and maybe would have difficulty presenting in a workshop. So I told my boss that I would come over and observe and help you out if you needed. But it looks like I didn't have to, and I'll have to go back and tell him that you did deliver and present really well." So all I can say is I was a little bit stunned and surprised that my colleague had made these assumptions, as I considered internally that facilitating workshops in public speaking was actually a bit of a strength of mine. I actually didn't say anything further on, but this experience stayed with me as I continued on my journey on how we can actually leverage diversity in all its forms in organisations. So, down the track, after much exploring, I now know why there was a bit of a miscommunication in my capabilities between myself and my team. And it actually comes from some of my cultural upbringing, which has molded me to communicate in the following way. So, my communication style, coming from a Sri Lankan upbringing in the household, is quite high context, which means it's not always about what I say. I don't always communicate verbally what I say, and sometimes you actually have to read between the lines. I rely on physical cues and context as much as words to convey meanings. But the dominant style in the team that I was working in, with a largely Australian upbringing, was low context, which meant that communication was direct, verbal, and people just say what they mean. And then, secondly, my conflict style is collaborative. And this comes from some of the power distance views that my upbringing has taught me. I tend not to challenge authority immediately or directly. And if my boss tells me something that I don't agree with, I don't always challenge it, but I might go and think about it and come back with my answer down the track. But the dominant style in my team at that point was competing, where ideas were willing to be challenged in the room directly at the boss and no offense was really taken. And then thirdly, my problem solving and decision making style, again, coming from some of my upbringing, was more holistic, where I want to understand how things are interrelated and understand the context and focus area before I drive down into a solution. However, the dominant style in my team at that time was more analytical in its problem solving, where the focus could be on a particular object or problem rather than the field in which the problem belongs. And there's this very formal, independent, logical way of resolving contradictions. So I share with you this brief experience to highlight that there really isn't a right or wrong way to do business or work with your team, but individuals within a team can actually have different working styles stemming from what cultural traits they may have or what cultural upbringing and experiences they have. Unfortunately, sometimes leaders can tend to see these differences as weaknesses, and it's not really understood how we can actually leverage these different styles of working together in teams. So, inclusive leadership is all about seeing these differences for what they are, which are diverse ways of doing things, and understanding how to adapt or harness that diversity and build coherent, strong, and empowered teams and organizations. So that's just a little bit of flavor for you guys in how this conversation is going to flow on. We're going to talk about inclusive leadership and share some stories, and I hope you can all take away some really tangible actions on how to practice inclusive leadership with your teams.
My name is Kian, and I'm an IT consultant, as Yoon said, for the last 10 years in IT industry. I started Phoenix Sisters in 2017. So my background, my story is I moved to Australia in year 2000 from Burma with my brother and sister without our parents. So before coming here, we had never been anywhere, not even to the shops without the parents. So it's quite a shock to us to do this, to actually come to a completely different country without our parents. But we accepted it. It's exciting. I've seen Home and Away. So I knew what I was coming into. This is Australia, so I was very happy. My dad taught us that it's going to be a long journey. Our lives will never be the same, and it's not going to be easy. So I was prepared for it. I'm still preparing for it to face anything. So I was expecting extreme pressure and heat. Isn't that how diamonds are made? So I say to life, bring it on. What is it going to take? So the list starts. First, get education and get great marks. Checked. Get a job. Checked. Make eye contact and make firm handshakes every time you meet people. I do that. Check. Smile so you're approachable. I do that too. Don't smile too much because you don't want to be a pushover. So I'm working on that. Stand up tall on your even feet. Don't slouch. Wear dark clothes. I'm doing that. Check. Do power poses and stretch and do these things so that you feel big and confident. I try to do that too. Speak in low and strong tone. Speak slowly and clearly. Check. Socialize. Build relationships. Working on that. Be the alpha. Be seen. Build your personal brand. Make everyone know your brand. Post every day on social media who you are. Fake it till you make it. Read a book every week. Wake up in the morning at 4 a.m. Exercise. Meditate. The list goes on. This is what it takes. If you haven't met me yet, I'm a 5'2". I look like a boy, a 12-year-old boy if you meet me outside. So I have to make an effort. I'm always smiling. I'm always giggling. And I'm always apologizing for something. So what I've concluded is that the image we hold, the reference we hold of what a leader should look like or a leader should act like, look nothing like this. So, but except that I'm very stubborn and I do not take a no for an answer. So I hope that helps. The reason why I'm sharing this list is because we, the diverse people, age, gender, culture, personality types, religion, many types of all of us, we have to do this so that we get offered a seat at the table. I want to give two examples of what happened in my experience, not to complain. It's to give you an idea of what happens. So I was a consultant in one of the places I was working at. I was working on a very important deliverable, as we do. And at the end of it, I asked who will be presenting. So my senior manager at the time looked at me and said, it won't be you because the audience who'll be listening are in their middle age with gray hair, so they won't listen to you. I got that comment. I didn't say anything at that time. I just dealt with it. I just blame myself that, oh, it's because of me. It's something that I did. So I just accepted it. However, now that I've grown since then, even now, I wouldn't have confronted, I wouldn't have said anything. However, if this happens, if for a situation like this, I would encourage leaders and senior managers to really invest in your team members, because you already have this person working in your team. Why don't you make the best out of that? Don't just dismiss them because of the way they look. It's just unacceptable in my opinion now. The second example I have is early this year. I've already become a senior manager. I thought things have changed. So this time around, I organized a meeting for my tester and software vendor. I facilitated it. Things were really going well until two things happened. And I was the only woman in the room. So at the end of the meeting, the manager, the software vendor guy, he said, "Oh, Kian, can you take notes and send the notes to us?" So this time around, I'm a little bit braver. So I said, "Nope, sorry, I'm here to facilitate, and it's your role to take notes because it's in your best interest to do that." So I thought I was good at standing up for myself. The second thing that happened, which really broke my heart, was my tester emailed the guy and apologized on my behalf for my behavior. He said I overreacted. So two examples I shared, again, not to complain, it's more these things happen all the time to us. And it happens way too many times for us. And this is the reason why you don't see many of us in the leadership. It's the same reason that the last panel highlighted, that we don't feel like we belong or we are valued in the same organizations. It's the murmur in the hallway that she's too quiet, no one will listen to her, and other unconscious bias infiltrating seemingly neutral performance review process. The question we all want to know the answer to is, how do we change that? I would suggest to first check your belief system. Whenever you have an impression of someone, check that, because you're going to make a career decision. If you're going to make this career decision, it's going to impact this person's life. So seriously, check that. We need to comprehensively understand why we need this change. There is conclusive data on why it's good. You're going to be so profitable and innovative. That's one. And another thing is, diversity shouldn't be just the CEO's job, or it's all our job. It should be everyone's job if you have the interest of the organization for the growth and to create the benefit, competitive advantage in the organization. It should be everyone's role to create a community of champions, create the culture where we collectively believe we are one team, believe that one individual's success is everyone's success. We look after each other, we push our excellence together and become the best of ourselves. And that's how I see what the inclusive leadership is. How do we do that? Invite people of diversity to an organization, extend the culture. Hiring them alone is not enough. But to get these wonderful people into leadership positions, you need to realize the full potential of all of us. You need to develop them, allow them to participate and speak up. If they don't know how to do that, teach them, allow them to make mistakes. When they speak up, listen. If they're not there yet, develop them some more. Offer a seat at the table when they're ready. If we can, raise awareness of the topics, educate everyone so that we have completely eliminated these unproductive unconscious bias that contribute to micro-inequities and microaggression. Make this as part of the company's business strategy. Change your HR policy. Make everyone's KPIs to cultivate the inclusion culture. consistently prioritize and commit and drive the agenda from top down, bottom up, every level of the organization. This needs time, concerted effort, allyship, and above all, inclusion by the peers and senior leadership. I've met many leaders, some of them are on the call, thank you for joining in, who supported me to come this far. One thing that they'll have in common is either they're diverse themselves, they have family members who are diverse, or had experience with diversity. And it's proven in the studies as well, and that they are more likely to push the agenda. And I want to give a special mention to Dr. Stephanie Fay, because I understand this is her last week at the Austrade. It will be a sad loss to the organization. She's one of those leaders who demonstrated inclusive leadership to me. I met her in 2014 while we both were at EY. She was a partner there at the time. And she somehow believed in me. And she somehow, like, for me, I wouldn't go up to someone in her position to take any of her time, but she offered to mentor me. So she demonstrated this again, that driving the D&I agenda so passionately. This panel is the proof itself. The impact she's made in my life is enormous. Every time I see her, I want to make sure I have something to talk to her, or prove her that my life is worth her time and her emotional investment. And this proves that inclusion does work and push us to be better and the best of ourselves. If we get it right, we will feel engaged. We will be equally contributing to solve real problems and not worry about whether we belong with each other. And don't worry about my list. Seriously, everyone will feel safe to be their authentic selves and feel supported to thrive in becoming the true diamonds that we are really meant to be. This is me. Thank you for the opportunity, guys.